Hey everyone, a lot of you have been asking me to review a video by this guy called Nutrition Made Simple. He recently released a video about seed oils. He's saying that RFK Jr. is wrong about them. We'll see what he has to say.
So RFK Jr. is nominated to oversee a lot of the health agencies in the United States, including the NIH and the CDC and a number of others. So he's been in the news a lot lately. And one of the things he's been talking about is food, and specifically his concerns with seed oils.
Seed oils are one of the most unhealthy ingredients that we have in food.
Yes, exactly. He's right. And that's because it's very unnatural so-called food. And really, you cannot define it as food because it's oils pressed out of toxic seeds, meaning that you get a lot of these toxins in even more concentrated forms when you consume these oils. Also, the way they extract these oils is toxic. They use hexane, for example, which has been found in micro amounts in the oils. Yes, it's not big amounts, but if you consume food with a lot of seed oils, eventually it adds up, it accumulates in the body.
Foods and seed oils, they are associated with all kinds of very, very serious illnesses.
He's right. Seed oils are associated with a number of chronic diseases, but it's with a lower risk of them. Dietary linoleic acid.
Yeah. I know what he's about to say. Let's make a few things clear. Firstly, he's going to be talking about epidemiology, cohort studies. RFK Jr. is right. There are studies obviously out there which will link, as in try to draw a correlation between seed oils and illnesses. Those are out there. I'm sure that he's not going to deny that. And then there's also these studies which say that they may prevent these diseases, or at the very least, they are not going to make them even worse. We'll see what exactly he'll try to show here. The thing is that cohort studies are epidemiological studies, and epidemiology is not scientific. Everybody who knows anything about science, actual scientists, know that epidemiology is not science. It's, if anything, the furthest away that you can have from science. It's more or less the same as reading the Bible. It's a religious belief. They just try to draw correlations between anything they possibly can. And especially if the studies are paid for, not saying that that's the case here, but a lot of times it is the case, then you can draw any kind of correlations. It's not hard to do that. I could easily make a study, especially if I would have enough money, that would prove that cleaning your windows prevents diabetes. And the people who clean their windows more often had a lower risk of diabetes easily, seeing as all that you need to do is make these questionnaires, they tick some boxes, fill out some paper. That's what cohort studies are essentially about. They follow these people, which they can't actually really physically do. They could technically, but nobody's going to do that. They simply question them after a few years, probably in this case. And then they say, did you consume this much canola oil? Oh, okay. And what about sunflower oil? Oh, okay. And then these guys consumed less. Oh, okay. That means that canola oil is good for you. That's it. Did you also consume margarine? Did you exercise a lot? Never even mentioned, because they only focus on something, which is why it's very unscientific. But this is exactly what these studies are about. It really doesn't matter what kind of conclusion they come to, seeing as they can never prove the cause of it. They only look at something specific and ignore everything else. And these guys who had less heart disease maybe didn't exercise as much, they didn't consume other garbage, but that we will never know, because all that the studies focused on are these seed oils.
That's the main type of fat in most of these seed oils, is associated with a 15% lower risk of coronary heart disease events. That's things like heart attack.
Yeah, and again, this is unscientific, it's irrelevant, it doesn't prove causation, and besides that, there's tons of studies that prove that they do actually cause all of this. It's just irrelevant, this kind of a video.
Attacks and strokes, and 21% lower risk of coronary heart disease deaths. So more linoleic acid, more seed oils, less heart disease. Yeah,
for sure. And it doesn't matter at all that they have actually tested these clumps, essentially, which are in your arteries, which cause the blockage, atherosclerosis in this case. It doesn't matter that those are mostly hardened vegetable oils, seed oils.
Death. When we look at the effect of cooking with different fats, following 500,000 people for 16 years.
Yeah, exactly. How can you follow 500,000 people? You can't, of course. The only thing that you can do is let them fill out some paper.
Canola oil, that's one of the seed oils, and also olive oil were both related to lower total mortality. So lower risk of dying.
Yeah, it's just related to it. They just asked these people if they consume these oils, and if they did, they say that it's related to it. It could have something to do with it. And to be fair, I'm not saying that epidemiology doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's just not scientific. It can be that some of these correlations have some kind of meaning, but you can never simply prove causation. There's nothing scientific about it. You can just believe it or not. And seeing as we have studies which prove both sides, in the case of seed oils, is pretty irrelevant. And if you believe that pressing out oil from toxic seeds is going to be good for you, then there's something wrong with you most likely anyway. You don't need a study to taste how horrible they taste, how toxic they are. At the end of the day, you need to rely on your own human senses instead of somebody telling you that it's good for you.
People who cook with those fats. One idea out there is that seed oils...
Yeah, but again, what did they cook? That we don't know. That's why it's not scientific. We don't know their overall diet or their overall lifestyle. Maybe one of them cooked vegan Beyond Meat and even added some margarine, as I said before, who knows what. It just depends on what they actually ate overall.
Should be replaced with animal fats like butter. Well, butter was positively associated with cancer mortality, so more dying of cancer.
Again, you would simply look at who ate more butter. It doesn't matter what else they ate. And then you would draw the conclusion, because of a correlation, that they had more cancer. Therefore, the butter caused the cancer. It's as far away from science as you can get.
Substituting corn oil, canola oil, these are all seed oils, or olive oil, not a seed oil, for butter and margarine. So eating either seed oils or olive oil instead of butter.
And this is also interesting because the first reported case of a heart attack was around 100 years ago. Before that, we always said a lot of animal fat, butter. The butter was raw, not pasteurized. Pasteurization is something very new. And nobody had heart disease, heart attacks, atherosclerosis, nothing. Then we started consuming seed oils, right then, margarine and everything, and we had heart attacks, atherosclerosis, and so on, all of a sudden. If you would want to draw a correlation or any kind of link between anything, then that would have to be it, right? Simply human history. Ate a lot of animal fat, only saturated fat, basically almost. Obviously, animal fat isn't only saturated fat, but for the most part. And then you started consuming seed oils, margarine, first heart attacks ever appeared. And now we have the highest levels ever in history since the last 100 years. So no heart attacks ever, tons of heart attacks, from butter to seed oils. Very confusing. I wonder what caused it.
Margarine was related to lower all-cause mortality.
I feel like he wants to be controversial. He just wants to say everything that's contrary to common sense.
Lower mortality from cardiovascular disease, lower mortality from diabetes, from cancer, from respiratory disease, from Alzheimer's. Conclusion, replacing butter and margarine with canola oil, corn oil, or olive oil was related to lower total and cardiometabolic mortality.
They are associated with all kinds of very, very serious illnesses, including body-wide inflammation.
Right.
So this is a very common question. Do seed oils cause inflammation? What does the science show? This systematic review...
Oh, wow, that's interesting. He actually does call it science, but I'm sure that he knows that it isn't science. just not by any definition of the word. Interesting. Either he's lying to you, which I would think is the case, or he's really ignorant, but I just can't believe that, because he looks at studies so much that he for sure must know that. Then he's just lying to his audience, calling it science.
View and meta-analysis explains concerns have been raised about linoleic acid because of potential pro-inflammatory and also potential thrombogenic properties. However, this speculation is not supported by randomized controlled studies. Intake of linoleic acid was not found to increase inflammatory markers. We have a video going over dozens of these trials one by one, covering 6 or 7 different types of seed oil, heated seed oil, not heated seed oil, large amounts, smaller amounts, longer follow-ups, shorter follow-ups. You consistently don't see a pro-inflammatory effect over and over and over again. Actually, it's much easier to find studies reporting a decrease in inflammation with seed oils than an increase. Randomized control trials and observational studies support that higher linoleic acid intakes reduce LDL cholesterol, increase insulin sensitivity.
I think that he means that reducing LDL cholesterol is a good thing, which is obviously not the case.
So that's good. That's better glucose metabolism, and are associated with lower concentrations of C-reactive protein, IL-6 and IL-1 beta. These are inflammatory markers. So lower inflammation with more linoleic acid, more seed oils in some of these studies. So this thing of seed oil...
But how come you don't have any actual scientific studies about it, where they actually look at literally what happens when you consume seed oils? Why do you only show these religious studies?
Oils are inflammatory is something that gets repeated mechanically on social media, never showing any evidence, because the evidence is all stacked in the opposite direction. Bottom line, bulk of the...
But what do you mean it's all stacked to the opposite direction? You know yourself that there's tons of studies out there which show that seed oils cause inflammation, heart disease, and so on. He knows that. The only argument he can make is that there's studies which show both sides. But he's talking about it as if it only shows that it's good for you, which isn't the case whatsoever.
Evidence not only does not support this idea that seed oils are this huge health issue, but it consistently shows that you replace seed oils with animal fats like butter, you make things worse. Okay, so how are Americans getting fat? Why do we have an epidemic of obesity? If it's not the seed oils, what is it? This is not a big mystery, guys. The average American gets most of their calories from ultra-processed foods, from junky foods. Almost...
Yeah, and these are covered in seed oils.
60% of their calories. And we know that a lot of ultra-processed foods in a diet increases caloric intake. So this isn't some big conundrum. But a lot of these ultra-processed foods, they contain what? Seed oils. So it's all the same thing, right? Potato, potato? No, because the worst offender among ultra-processed foods, both for weight gain and for risk of disease, is sugar-sweetened beverages, soda, which contains no seed oils. And when we look at the seed oils themselves, not in a Twinkie, but added to foods or to cook foods at home, we consistently see benefits, not harms.
There's nothing mysterious about why people are fat. People consume unnatural food, which he calls processed food. A lot of the vegetables, fruits that we eat are also man-made, unnatural. And because they're not getting the micronutrients that they need, their bodies are always asking for more food. They are constantly hungry, and that's why they eat more and more carbohydrates. They turn the sugar into fat in the liver, and they become fatter and fatter. They just spike their insulin non-stop, which signals their body to store more and more fat. It's very simple.
As we already saw. So it's not about the seed oils. It's about eating junk. Junk with seed oils, bad. Junk without seed oils, still bad. And junk with butter instead of seed oils, still bad. And actually, according to decades of science, it's worse than the junk with the seed oils. It's a step backwards. Focusing entire health agencies on random stuff with no understanding is a waste, is a massive waste of resources and a wasted opportunity, because we could be addressing things that actually make a difference. Maybe make whole foods cheaper and more accessible.
Is this what he promotes? Probably. He promotes eating seeds, unnatural fruits, green leaves, sweet potatoes or whatever, and some eggs. That's about it. Not even any meat. He clearly has no idea what he's talking about anyway.
So that people don't have to eat so much junk, so much ultra-processed foods. Or maybe try to make ultra-processed foods healthier, but with something that's actually documented by science, not going in the opposite direction. With seed oils, this is a complete distraction. All right, but seed oils make massive amounts of money. It's a huge industry. So it's all a conspiracy, right? I mean, just follow the money. How is this helpful exactly? Okay, let's follow the money. Seed oils are very profitable, so follow the money, they're out. What are we going to eat instead? Let's go with butter. Oh, wait, beef and dairy is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So follow the money, those are out. Let's go with olive oil.
You should just eat what you're naturally supposed to eat. Weird guy.
Pretty much everybody agrees olive oil is healthy, right? Oh, it's a massive industry. Follow the money, chuck the olive oil.
Olive oil is just oil pressed out of toxic fruits. Nothing good about it.
What are we supposed to do? Find charities that produce food for free? Rates of heart disease deaths in the U.S. have fallen abruptly for over half a century. Entire infectious diseases have been eradicated, have been eliminated, thanks to scientific advances. Polio, eradicated. Measles, essentially eliminated in the United States. Smallpox, eradicated. Cancer used to be a death sentence. Nowadays, many types of cancer are very manageable, curable even.
I wish that I could talk about this topic.
With radio, with chemo, with surgery. AIDS used to be a death sentence. Very manageable
Oh, this topic also. That's an interesting one.
nowadays with modern medicine. And life expectancy, how long we live overall, that's kind of the bottom line. It's gone straight up. With the exception of a couple blips, a blip in the pandemic, it's a straight arrow up for the last 100 years. So this idea that we used to be so healthy and now everything's worse is a gross misunderstanding. Some things are really bad. Obesity epidemic, diabetes epidemic.
The life expectancy is the lowest right now in history. What he's saying is that they used to calculate the deaths of babies together with the age of the adults, and then they would of course say that the average age of death was lower, and there's of course a lot of simply assumptions, seeing as there were no death certificates not that long ago. It's not even possible to calculate it much anyway, but when we look at the reports from people who went to all of these tribes and whatnot, we can see that people used to live way longer, seeing as we have tons of people who lived way beyond their hundreds. There's a lot of death certificates from churches, for example, which show that people live to the ages of 150, 60. You don't see anybody who lives that long today. People are in their 70s, 80s. Our life expectancies are horrible. Even if you look at some normal tribes in Africa, you have tons of people who live to their hundreds. Did your grandpa, grandma live to their hundreds today? No, it's simply them counting in the mortality of babies and children if they get eaten by animals or die from starvation or whatever. And that's why they say that the overall life expectancy was lower. But if you don't count that in, if you simply look at how long people lived, if they did live to their adult life, then their life expectancy was almost double as long as ours. And that's crazy. And that's how unhealthy we are, that people lived double as long as we do now. And it's insane.
And other things have improved amazingly. So we want to fix what's not working. We want to keep all the stuff that is working. Now, I don't think that RFK Jr. is the problem. Feel free to disagree. I don't think Trump is the problem. I think these are symptoms. People are done with the corruption and the lies in these institutions of power that have abused trust. The government, the mainstream media, these guys lie like they breathe. The healthcare industry in the U.S., the insurance companies are completely predatory. Anybody who opposes these institutions and this system, people are going to go with that, even if it's incredibly flawed.
I have to say that this is one of the worst and, in a way, funniest channels on YouTube, especially when it comes to nutrition, to simply show completely, by definition, unscientific studies and to then say that, or at least imply that we should be consuming seed oils. And there's probably a lot of people who watch these videos and will actually do that, or at the very least not watch out anymore if they consume seed oils, is so dangerous, so irresponsible, absolutely almost actually insane. I can hardly believe that he's actually doing this. You don't need any study. All that you need to do is try to eat a seed. You can't eat it. It tastes horrible. You can't even chew it open. Okay, throw it out. But then to actually go as far as trying to somehow press out these seed oils, which are, by the way, rancid. When they sell it to you, they simply remove the odor. That's why you can't smell how rancid they are. And then, because you can smell them, you can still, of course, taste how horrible they taste. All that you would need to do is take canola oil, for example, which is insanely toxic because it's seeds from flowers. Flowers are insanely unhealthy, obviously, for a human being, but he probably eats broccoli full of insanely bad toxins. And that's how far away from reality this guy lives. And you would simply need to taste it. And it tastes like death. And that's it. Why would you need a study if your actual natural senses tell you that it tastes like death? Especially if it wouldn't be processed at all. And you could actually also smell the seed oils. If you could smell them, then you wouldn't actually even put them in your mouth. But because these seed oils are covered up usually, they are even in bread nowadays oftentimes, then you don't taste them. And also, why do you need studies about seed oils and heart disease if the plaque in your arteries has already been analyzed and it's mostly made up of seed oils? Why do we need epidemiological studies which tell us that seed oils are good or bad for us if we already know what the plaque is made out of? And if we know that the first recorded heart attack was 100 years ago, pretty much exactly when we started consuming seed oils, and why do we need any of that? And then this guy also doesn't even show all of the epidemiological studies, which are irrelevant, that show how bad seed oils are for you. He only showed the ones which say that they prevent these diseases or are at least not really linked to them, which is all that he showed, simply correlations and people trying to link something to something without actually looking what else they ate, if they exercised, if they had any stress, and so on. All of that is ignored. It's just as unscientific as you can get. It's a very bad channel, very dangerous. He also made a video about raw milk not that long ago. If you want me to review that one also, then comment about it and I'll do it. Thanks for watching.